Is his name Ellen? Well, I like to hear him more about what I'd like to talk because I think he would be a wonderful speaker here. So we will continue. Tomorrow you talk a little more too, okay? So I appreciate those pre-leading comments, and we are so different. And we will be learning some of the things. We only have 4 sessions this weekend, but I will share as much as I can within those 4 sessions. So tonight we're going to start with how do we act like how we are acting right now? How do I act like how I am acting right now? So we want to understand this. When it comes to relationship, the first step is to know about you. Why are you yelling at this thing? Why do you love this thing? You know, we want to know because it's not about changing our partner. It's about changing me, and it took me so many years to learn this. So let's focus on how we became the way we are. And when we do this, I want to go through a little tiny bit of physiology in our brain. And before we do that, I like to read together what Sister White says about us. Okay, ready and go. Lord has given man capacity for continual improvement and has granted him all possible aid in the work. Through the provisions of divine grace, we may attain almost to the excellence of the angels. Little did I know that it takes so much learning to have a happy marriage. I mean, to get a PhD, I had to study a 4-year degree, right? And then go to another 2-year master's degree, another 4 years. So to have a job, it takes that much knowledge. And then I'm learning more and more to have a happy marriage. You want to study like you're getting a PhD. It takes so much energy and so much knowledge to keep us happy, to stay in love. It does. And we think marriage just comes. You know, I lived in a Korean culture and a little more in American culture. None of the culture taught me how to be loving and compassionate spouse. So I'm learning everything new, and we struggled a lot. If my husband and I struggled and made it until now, all of you can do it. I'll share all of my struggles with you. Okay? So understanding human mind, this is our brain here. It's a very good picture here. And then I have a little picture here. What is this? Rose. How did you know this is a rose? Oh, she told you she was born before you. He never disagreed? Oh, that's just a yes, ma'am? Yes, ma'am? Yeah. Okay. So how did we know this is a rose? Somebody told us. I have 2 grandsons. One is 6-year-old, and one is just only 5 months. So 6-year-old, when he was about 2 and 3, everything that he was saying, Nanny, what is this? What's that? Why is that? Why do you call this flower? Oh my goodness, I didn't have an answer for that one. So we decided to call it flower. But then why is it a rose? Why is it not something else? Very smart questions. And then I didn't know. We just decided to call it rose. So then, as he hears me, he integrates everything. Oh, so this is called flower, and specifically a rose. So as he's integrating this, and he probably repeats saying to himself several times, as he's doing that, the shape of this flower is recording right here in the back of the brain, right? And as he's touching, it has a little thorny thing, Nanny. There's a little thorny thing, it hurts me, right? And then all of this touch gets recorded somewhere around here. And the smell gets recorded somewhere around here. And then all of this integration happens in the brain, and you don't need to know what brain part that it records everything, but it does get internalized. Not only the shape and look and smell of it, also the emotion attached to it. How many of you like this flower? Anyone like rose? How many of you don't like a flower, period? What about those who didn't? Oh, yeah, there's someone. Yes.
Yeah.
Why do you think you like flower? There was some pleasant exchange that you experienced with the flowers, right? Now, for me, I don't know what he experienced about the flower, but I never appreciated flower when I was growing up. I remember when I was age 5, I was born in 1950 in Korea, and little town is called Seosan. And then on that Seosan city, there was a huge hill there. On top of the hill, there was my house. And there was, in the big house, and there's a lot of ground there. And it wasn't like American style. There's a Korean style house. And when I was about age 5, my sister was 5 years older. And my mother wasn't home, and she got a bright idea. Sunja, come here. We're going to make a beautiful flower bed. So she worked really hard, and of course, I'm not a much help, but she did tell me what to do. So I helped her. In my mind, I helped her really, really hard, and we made a beautiful flower bed. Maybe, right, if that's the main gate, and from to the left, from there to that side was probably about that length of my house inside of the gate. So then it's about this wide and that long, and she dug all the ground and everything and put whatever she was supposed to do. And then I helped her putting all this little seed and some of this little baby plants and all of that. So then we were all done, and the sunset. My mom hasn't come home yet. So we waited. And apparently my sister, she may have to do something like a homework, something. She disappeared. And I'm still waiting at the door, waiting for my mom to come. And she would come in and she would praise me, say, good girl, you did a good job and all of that, because I was always a good girl. I never disobeyed my mom. Whatever mom said, I was always say, yes, mom. So I was always a good girl, so I was just waiting just to be so proud that she was going to give me, she was going to rub my head and say, you're such a good girl, and do all of that. So then when it was almost this dark, I think, it may be a little bit darker than this right now, my mother came in. So I ran to her, and then I said, Mommy, right? And then I brought her to the flower bed. And what happened? She became so furious. Remember, I was born in 1950. That was right after the Korean War. It wasn't time to celebrate flowers. It was about surviving, rice, noodles, vegetables. And she got so mad, and she said, what on earth do you guys don't know anything? You don't make any sense out of this whole world. And she was so upset, and she dug out all the flower plants and seed, and next morning I woke up, there we go, what do I see? Green onions and little this and little pepper plant and this and that, and I was so sad. And I didn't know why I didn't like flowers. And during my college, if any guy comes to me with a flower to ask for dating and this and that, what happened? That's just automatic no. That guy doesn't have a sense. What on earth is he thinking about? The flower right now, you need to be practical, just like what my mom told me, right? That he better come to me with the English dictionary or notebook or something to propose to me to go out on a date. And which that elderly did really good job on that one. So he passed, right? So that's how I did not like the flowers. So everything about any object, we also internalize the emotional experience. So some of you would love the rose. I know right now I changed my mind. I like flowers. After 44 years of marriage, something got to change. So I am enjoying, right? So, I like flower, but at that time, when I was growing up until about 5-7 years into my marriage, if my husband gave me flower, I was not very impressed. I couldn't say, no, I don't like it, but he didn't know why I wasn't so excited about, flower giving. It better be something like some nice clothes or money or something more practical. Right? The flower goes away after 3 days. What do you do this? So things like that. So all of these things gets internalized here in the brain. So same thing with every human behavior. And everything gets internalized, all the shapes, patterns of behavior, and the emotional responses. So emotional pattern and cognitive pattern, all of them get to be internalized in our brain. And whenever we see this rose, we respond with emotions. We don't just say, oh, that's a rose, there's a red, oh, the green leaf, and this and that. We have, oh, I love roses, the emotional responses. And much of our behaviors are triggered by emotional memories, emotional responses. So I don't want to talk about flowers. The issue is, how did I become who I am? Or who I was, I should say, and part of it, who I am still, okay? So again, and then I had my older sister and my older brother, and it was me. And when I was born in 1950, in that town in Korea, there was a very, very specific rules to be this way for the girls and that way for the boys. You just have to learn this to be a lady. And if you don't learn it, you're just not a high-class woman, right? So there's a lot of learning happening there. So even if when I was talking, I couldn't just talk out loud. If my voice goes outside of the main gate, I was punished. I was supposed to talk very soft, very gentle, so my voice don't go outside of the main gate. So if my father comes from outside, hears my voice with my sister talking too loud, what do we get? Lot of scolding, lot of yelling. And even if when we go outside, we couldn't just laugh. I had to have a little handkerchief to put on next to my lips and go smile like this to be a Korean lady. So, we do all of this. And then walking, oh my goodness, did I get trained for walking. I was born, walk the side way. So if I am not being careful, I walk like this. Naturally, my first daughter does the same thing. And that was a no-no. And then later that I found out through the orthopedic surgeon that sometimes when people walk this way, there's a different angles on an ankle area. That's why I'm walking like that. I didn't know, but that was my punishment. But I couldn't walk like that. So every summer, my aunt, my mom's sister, would come to our house. She will take me to an elementary school, and there's a 100-meter running line, the white line, under the hot sun, that I would go there, walk like this. Now, you do this about 3-4 hours a day at the age 5, 6, 7. That's how severely that I was trained. And then, even if when you get up in the night to go bathroom, you walk like this. Right? My brother was not such a good boy. He was always a troublemaker. But he didn't always want to be a troublemaker. Every boy, every kid wanted to be a good boy. Every girl wanted to be a good daughter, right? But he would always get into trouble. And later I found out, and when you have a dysfunctional family member, one kid acts out. And that happened to be my brother. He didn't know how to get positive attention. But he realized Sunja, his little sister, would always get compliment when she walked right like this, right? So one morning, I still remember my brother, he was only 2 years older than me, 2 years. And he got up while we were eating, and in the Korean house, there's a ground here, right? And then right up there's this little wooded area, that's where we're eating there. He got off the wooded area, and he came down all of a sudden in front of my mom, my dad, and my grandma, my mother's mother. We were all eating together, and all of a sudden he started walking. Oh, man was right. Same walk that he tried, he didn't get compliment. He was severely scolded. What are you doing? You can't walk like that. And he was so confused. Just imagine if I was 5.5, he would only be in 7.5. So he's also trying to be how to be a good boy, to get some compliment. But same behavior he produced, he got punished for it. So he got so confused. And then one day, he's constantly watching me because I'm such a good girl there. Mom loves me, dad loves me, grandma loves me. He's just watching me intensely, right? So, I go into the kitchen. And of course, the kitchen is not like a kitchen in on one floor in Korea when I was growing up. So there's a little hump here, then I have to go up and down and go there, put little chopsticks and spoons. Of course, I get lots of compliments, right? So then he also what? This is it. This one I cannot fail. Apparently, he decided. So he tried to come close to the kitchen area and try to put his one foot on top of the hump and go over. Guess what at that time? Men could not go to a kitchen. That was a no-no thing. That was a girl's thing, not boys' thing. So then when my dad and the grandma saw him doing this, they both yelled at him, say, come out of there. If you go to the kitchen, something important thing of the man thing will fall off. You know, there was a lot of punishment about this. Right. And so he immediately came out. At that time, he broke down. He was so confused, and he cried. So that's how we all got trained. All the house chores, too. You know, girls were doing this, and boys were doing this in the sports. The men were allowed to do all the sports, and girls couldn't do the sports. And no wonder when I do the running, if there's 6 people run, I always become what? 6th person. And then I'm just not good with the sport. So all of training, that ever since I was born, that my mom and all my entire family trained me to be who I was to be. And then all of this internalization happens. Everything we hear, everything we were emphasized, demanded to do, gets to be internalized. We have 100 billion cells, and each cell has about 50 connecting cells as well. So there are a lot of brain cells we have here. So then, that's how I grew up in my town. And everyone does the same thing. My Brandon, he has my brain. My grandson. My brain is a very particular, very rigid. Everything had to be organized. My Brandon, when he sleeps and when I read a book, he's worrying about, Nanny, I need to put that book in my bookshelf. He's so sleepy, he's worrying about this. Can you imagine him getting married and married to a woman and a telling woman, what is he going to do? I can just see him. He's going to have just as hard time that I had when he gets, when he meets someone, right? So everything gets to be trained. Then even hanging the clothes. We didn't have a lot of closet back then. There was a big house and a big room. Everyone had a nail. This was my big sister's nail. This is my brother's nail. The third one is my nail. If we didn't hang our own clothes on the right nail, what do we get? We get a lot of spanking. We have to go out, get our own rod this long, and has to be fairly thick, and we'll get spanking on our legs. A lot of bruises back then, right? So then, I never not hang my clothes. I just learn better because my brother always messes up. So it's vicarious learning. He gets a lot of beating. I behave. So I don't ever not hang the clothes. Even the nail clippers, we have a right place. There's my mother's dresser here. On this left side, there's a little red box. There's all the needles and sewing things here, right? And then on the right side, there's another black box. We put all the nail clippers, safety pins, and hairpins and all. It always have to be there. If you use a nail clipper, you have to put it back there. And if you don't, we get a spanking again. So that's how I grew up. A lot of things. We couldn't put any hair on the floor, right? Even sleep hours. What time do you need to go to bed? Can we go to bed at 9 o'clock? Is it okay to go to bed at 1 o'clock? Why do we sometimes fight about sleeping time? Is it okay sometimes to take a nap? And some people call it she's so lazy. So, we fight about a lot of things because of all of what was internalized in us, right? And how many times can we forgive? To me, in my town, the 3 times was a max. So if you try to forgive 3 times and you make the same mistake a 4th time, you are done. We don't deal with you. So this thing got so deeply engraved in me, even after I became a Christian and became a Seventh-day Adventist. For me to forgive somebody 4th time on the same thing, especially on my husband, is a chore. I just get so angry because that was the response I received. Now, when I made a same mistake on the 4th time, I don't get forgiveness. There's severe consequences coming. Everything is all set in my brain. So, and then you have to be honest. Who do we accept? Who do we not accept? And then I was really trained to be honest. Honest was a very, very important thing in my family. And if some people not honest, I don't associate with that person. So training is good, except if you don't really think about reintegrate this, it becomes a rejection line for the people. We reject this person because of that. We don't talk and get along with the prostitute. Even though Jesus led his way to this woman with the 7 husbands, maybe more men too, we don't do it. I don't do it. Maybe I can try right now. Before, I just couldn't think about. We don't even, there's such a big discrepancy. We don't play. We don't get together. We don't eat together. All of these things. And then I learned so well. And when I got married, my husband, every time, we got married in Korea, and we stayed a little bit, and I came to America, and he joined a little bit later. I came out of the bedroom to go bathroom early in the morning, maybe about like 3 or 4. And then I get so startled on the way walking. Because I'm walking there, then there's something big crawled down on the floor. I thought, what is this? I get so scared. And I said, what is this? Why is it on the floor? Why? Because I used to get so startled if I find something of my clothes on the floor. Because I know if my dad or mom catches this, what's going to happen? I get a lot of spanking, right? And I get so scared that I quickly, get it up and hang it up like this. I do the same thing. Why is this thing on the floor? And then I walk a little bit further down, and then right before the bathroom, what do I see? Another 2 little snakes right in front of the door. And I'm thinking, why is this thing on the floor? And what do? Just like how my parents got used to get angry, I do the same thing to my husband. Well, first 2 months I behaved. Honeymoon 2 months. I try to be patient. I'm a decent woman. I need to give him some time for him to know, right? But on the 8th week, my brain exploded. So it's always like a volcano boiling in my brain. The same behavior my mother and father used to do to us. I scream at him. Why can't you put this on the hanger? Why can it not be in the closet? Now we have this closet here. And my husband has his own theory. In the morning, I'm going to wear that same pants again. Why do I have to hang it and take it out and wear it? I'm just going to pick it up and wear it. Why do I have to hang it up there? Huge argument there. And my theory is because this looks right and you're supposed to do it, you should do it. All of these should lines. And my husband said, why do you have to have that should? And I didn't know why I should have to have that shoulds, right? So many shoulds there. So then we argue like this. Every Friday is like a wartime. I'm trying to clean up this and clean up that, and every time I see his socks, and I don't know what this is about. The hamper's right here. Why he takes the socks all the way there and put right next to the hamper? Why couldn't it be right inside of the hamper? What's happening here? I just don't get it. And when I don't get it, what happened? I get angry. And I don't think about that I am Christian. And even I am a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. When my emotional memory gets triggered, I act as an automated robot without thinking, just like how our family member acted when I was growing up. And we had so many fights. You can imagine with my kids, whenever I see their hair on the bathroom floor, even when they are ready to go to school, I will call them back in, make them to clean the hairs, and then they could go to school. That was so important to me because that was so much emphasized when I was growing up. And with even the nail clipper, I always put in the right spot, right? When he uses it, can I find it? No. Where did you put the nail clipper? Oh, I used it somewhere. Let's see, where did I put it? So we spent 15 to 20 minutes trying to find it. And do I get angry? I feel justified even to get angry that I'm wasting my precious 15 minutes of my life. So we get fight about this. So we had a fight every day. There was no day. I mean, you think about fighting every day in life. So, even going bed, I'm an early bird, and my husband is an owl. And we fight about what time should we go bed. And when we fight, we don't just fight. I don't just fight. I even bring Sister White's writing. I get her help, Look, to go to bed early, it'll make your brain function better, and all of these quotations going around and to put a lot of judgment on him. And he just gets so tied up. And one day I noticed whenever we eat, he will get either book or newspaper, just cover his face. And we'll be eating like this. And then I also noticed after we have a kid, when we go out walking, my two girls, we have two girls, they were all dangling around right side of dad and left side of dad. And they were having good, nice talking, laughing and whatever. And I'm walking all by myself. And I didn't think about anything. I'm just doing a good job training my girls to be right? So all of this training that I was doing, it was causing so many different things. And whatever was so emphasized got all internalized. And then that internalized content becomes a rule and standard of our own behavior. And we think my training is right. My husband thinks his training is right. So who's right? And that's why a lot of fighting is about what we are, how we became who we are. And the problem is when I have, like by age 7, our brain is almost settled in the way how we're going to live. Sister White said our personality is formed by age 7. So there are too many lines in my brain. And I realized that all of these shoulds functioned as a rejection line. You don't do this right, you don't do this right, you should do this. I never accept my husband as he is or as he was. The same thing in the church. So I have a lot of things, and this was what it meant to be very high-class Korean woman. There were so many rules, right? You're supposed to eat this way. You're supposed to walk this way. You're supposed to look at this way. You're supposed to laugh this way. And then all of these rules made me, and then I didn't realize all of these rules made a lot of people stay away from me because I always acted I was right. And then I was noble. I was high-class woman, and that kind of thing. So, by then, and then by age 12, we moved to a small town, and there was an SDA church. And a lot of kids, I was like a 5th grade, a lot of kids were there going to the SDA church, and I went there, and it felt just right. Guess what? Lot of do's and don'ts, and this is right and that right, and it just felt so right. This must be the right church. I fell in love with SDA as soon as I got there. And there were a lot of teaching. I never learned who Christ was at that time. I learned a lot of what SDAs do and don't. What you don't eat, how you're going to wear, what kind of clothing you wear. And it was just not a culture of a loving, compassionate Christ. It was a lot about what do you eat, what do you not eat. And then, my brother, he was only 2 years older, I told you. He was always in trouble. And when I got to the church, somehow, he never liked going to church, but somehow he apparently got interested because I kept telling my brother, come to church. They give you a notebook and this and that. We were growing up in a poor time, and getting one extra notebook was a big present from the church, right? So then one day I was inside of the church, and I heard somebody going, ah, and then that sounded like my brother. And then I thought, is my brother here? So I went out, and I opened the door. Sure, there was. He was eating squid outside of the church, right outside the door, squid. And one of the youth teachers saw this, and he slapped him, blaspheming Jesus Christ, eating squid in the church ground. So that was the culture. Nobody scolded that church. I never got mad. My brother never came back. It was a normal thing at the time. What you eat was a very, very important. And what you don't eat was more important. So nobody told the teacher that he shouldn't do it. It was just like that. It was a righteous thing for Christ. And that kind of atmosphere, lot of critical thing, lot of judgmental, lot of demanding, lot of hypocritical thing, lot of approval seeking. We have to be right for this. We have to be righteous. We have to be perfect to go heaven. So I lived on the thing that I have to be perfect for many, many years. And then all of this thing was not bad to me. It kind of came into my brain, and I was very comfortable with that. So then with my Korean culture and my SDA culture, I grew up to be very, very appropriate woman. And a lot of things were just internalized as an automatic thing. It's like when someone is sick, I didn't know how to say, oh my goodness, you're so sick. What can I do? Can I bring something for you? But I knew this first. You need to eat healthy. Don't drink Coke. You're eating too much meat. That's why you're sick. That's what I learned first. So even, later time when I came to America, when I was visiting people, somebody ill, I didn't know how to bring compassionate Christ there. I was busy looking at what is she eating? Why is she sick? I will go to the kitchen and see what kind of food they eat. And all of these things were happening, right? And then when somebody is sad, we don't know how to be compassionate. When a spouse is really, really sad, we don't know how to go hug and give. I feel sad because you're so sad. I'm so sorry. But before we do this is what I learned. You need to pray more to God. You need to read more Bible. That's why you're so sad. You need to have more faith. Forget about all sadness. Drop it. Now, when you're sad, were you able to drop it? I never learned how to be compassionate. So you can imagine when my husband is needing me something, my critical judgment comes first. Now, if he has a little bit of headache, you need to drink 8 glasses of water, or you will never get headache, that kind of thing. It's just prevalent. It's everywhere, every corner. And when you find your child doing marijuana, you don't understand what kind of problem they go through. And before you try to understand, you get mad. Don't you know your dad is a head elder? That you're doing this? What's going to happen to my face? Our face is more important than what our kids are going through. So we just don't know how to behave. When spouse is angry, you need to pray more to control your anger. Okay? So it's a Sabbath. You don't do that. My boy is a 6-year-old, my grandkid. About 6 weeks ago, about 6 weeks ago, he said, Nanny, why? I don't like Sabbath. Why? Because it's boring. Why boring? Because I cannot watch my iPad. I cannot watch TV. I cannot play my game. That's the image he's already getting at age 6. So I talk with my kids, we got to be creative. Let's not talk about what he cannot do. Let's do more what he can do. But that's how I grew up too. I didn't know how to be happily celebrating. There were a lot of things going on, but there were so many things I couldn't do. I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that, I couldn't go to the beach, I couldn't do this and all that. And I'm so glad now that we can go to the beach. Some beaches, right? And some things need to be changed. So, all of this thing got internalized in me. So, I became control freak. Too many lines, too many restrictions. And all of these shooters. So you can imagine my kids, the early time. I quit a lot of this before they became late teenage, luckily. But I did all of this thing until they were my oldest one was maybe 11, 12, and the little one about 8. So they still talk about how rigid mom used to be. Yeah? So, after I told them 70 times I'm sorry, because they do challenge me, Mommy, you used to be like this. You screamed at me. We were at the church, and I wasn't even making noise, and you scolded me. And of course, I'm the pastor's wife. When the little kids there, they're making noise, I couldn't scold the other kid. So I scolded my kid, right? So they feel unfairly punished. And they talked about this, and I made so many mistakes in my life, and every time they talk about it, all I can say, I'm so sorry I didn't know. It was true. I thought I was doing best. And you think I was driving them crazy? Just ask my husband. If I was driving them crazy, how much more did I drive him crazy? You need to wear this. That color doesn't match with that one. That socks doesn't match with that pants. You need to hang this way, that way. When you go outside, you need to do this, and all of these things. He did say many, many years ago, had I not changed a little bit, he wasn't sure whether he would still be with me. I was that bad. It's just I didn't even know. I thought I was perfect. Of course, I'm perfect. I know everything. Right? So that's why there were so many fights there. So when we know that we have too many of these things, we have a lot of fights at home. So we need to examine all the shooters in our brain. And all the effects of all the demanding, what it needs to be done, how it affects into the quality of your relationship with your spouse. And much of the fightings we do is because of this. What we think is right. So I don't know. And so much, programmed robot, a lot of automaticity of the emotional angerness, upsetness. It's just automatic. Whenever I see too many things on the floor at home, I get angry, irritable. Because that's how I was treated. It just comes automatically. The compulsion of demanding what I was demanded and thinking that was the right thing. And when we are preoccupied with all shouldas and do's and don'ts and all of that, we just cannot be loving anyone. We cannot be critical and loving at the same time. We can only do one thing at a time. So if I can let go of all these shouldas, that I can become more loving, accepting, and compassionate. I thought I do this because I loved him. I did this because it was my automatic compulsion that it just comes. And then I always thought that was the right thing to do. Okay? So unless I reintegrate my brain all over, my brain was doomed to failure of marriage, my kids, disfiguring Christ to people. I later realized that I have to be reborn. And when you know about yourself, you become so humble. You just become so humble. You just say, Lord, take me and reshape me. It's a genuine repentance. And until I knew what I was, until I knew I was just product of my culture, I thought I was somebody very important, that I could demand what I know, what I think is right. It was all just the traits of what my mom and dad used to do, what my grandma and grandpa used to do. It was not that important. I had to learn what was really, really important. So, to know oneself is a great knowledge. Self-knowledge does lead to humility. And then you really learn to trust in God. So when we know our deficiencies, we really thrive to be better and to reach the highest possible standard of physical, moral, mental excellence. We do want to try this. I do know one thing, that my love for Christ is genuine. So whenever I read something like that, I take it seriously. Because He is everything for me. So I tried. I knew I was doomed to destroy my life, my husband's life, my kids' life, and the Christ's representation. I just didn't have it. Everything was do this, do that, pray, read, eat, don't eat. It's too hot and the skirt is too short or too long. Oh, you cannot do this or you can do this. All of these things were just possessed me. And then when I have to recreate myself, it was a lot of work. Some of you may be lucky, you just have to change one little thing. I had to change a lot of things in me, right? So to do that, to recreate myself in Christ, I really had to monitor a lot of my emotional patterns. Why do I get upset? Why do I get upset if my husband comes 15 minutes late to the appointment? I used to get so upset even if he gets late, 15 minutes. Like a whole entire world is going to ruin or something. It's only because my father used to do that. We could never be late. Right now, he's in a nursing home. He can't talk, so he can't get really upset. But even until then, on Father's Day, my husband came a little bit late after he went out playing golf. He was about 15 minutes late, and I was just so upset because knowing my father was going to be upset. Of course, when I took my family and meet my father, he was so upset. So it was a normal thing for me to get upset when my husband became a little bit late. And whenever I become late or go late somewhere, he does this. He has some kind of book here, and then he's just reading. And when I arrived, he goes, "Oh, you came. Okay, now let's do it." I didn't know how he was doing that. I couldn't do it. So many things. So I had to monitor a lot of my pattern. And I had to free myself from my emotional automatic responses, right? Automatic reaction, and create new behavior. So when I see my husband's clothes, pants, and shirts on the floor, what do? I look at it. I say, "Sunja, you don't have to get angry over this. Your mom and dad is not here. They're not going to get upset. You don't have to be angry. If you have energy to hang it, hang it. If you don't have energy, just leave it. Nobody will get upset." To my amaze, when I didn't scream, nobody screamed in my house. I walked over, training my brain. You don't have to get angry, it's okay. Mom's not going to come and spank you. She's not here. But my mom and dad is always in my brain, remote controlling me. So we always live a present moment in the past. We bring the past in the present moment unless we monitor ourselves and retrain our emotional brain. So I did this so long, right? And after so many years, and I think it was about 5-6 years ago, my husband said, "Okay, honey, When you do seminar, you better do right. Now, whose clothes are more on the floor? You better be honest about that. Brain comes as a package. When I told myself don't get angry over my husband's socks and pants and this and that, I let go of that obsessivity, right? And my pants are here, my skirts are here, and all of this on a Friday. He's picking up more of my clothes than I'm picking up his clothes. Because as I was trying to free myself, he tried to become a little more obsessive because he knows that I like house being cleaned. So he's really busy picking up all of this. Although sometimes he still put his socks right next to the hamper, he became so much better in hanging his clothes. And I became so much better in not getting angry over his clothes on the floor. Now, nail clipper issues. One day, I went to the store. There we go, nail clipper on sale, 99 cents. Why didn't I think about this? If I buy 100 of this, only $100, right? I will never have an argument about this. When you are trying to free yourself, you become a little bit wise. But when you don't think about this, you still live in that obsessed, emotional pattern. So I was going to buy all of it. I counted all. There were only 14. Good enough. We'll see how long it'll last. I bought 14. I gave him all. I kept one. Hid it well. He can never find it, right? He can't. Sometimes, there are so many nail clippers, all his. He was still asking me, "Where's the nail clipper, honey?" I said, "I don't know." I know, but I can't tell you. I don't know. Because if I let it go, what? I'm going to have to find it for 20 to 30 minutes next time I need it. So I don't ever argue. I don't ever get angry, but I don't tell him where mine is. So, you do become a little bit wiser in dealing with a lot of this obsessive thinking. So I became so much less obsessive about that. And in my husband, I later realized when I met my mother-in-law, she looked at me, and until she died, no matter what I did, I was good enough for her. Everything I did, "You're so good. You're so nice. My little daughter-in-law," she calls me. "You're so nice," and all that. No wonder. He can never find the faults in me. He always gets blamed from me. He was just happy. As long as I don't get angry, he's always happy. I'm always getting upset about something because my brain was so well trained to be picky, orderly, organized, clean, discriminative with the people. All of this was, right? He can be a friend with anybody on this earth. I'm scanning people. I'm already decided, she can't be my friend. He can't be my friend. No, I try hard not to do it anymore. Now it's working after 40-some years of effort of trying to change. To become Christ-like person. For me, it's a torture because I was born and with this very, very meticulous brain, and then on top of that with a lot of training on me. But it's working. And I am working so hard in a lot of loving behavior instead of doing a lot of criticism. I try to replace all of this criticism with the compliments. So when I go and walk in the church with the new people, I like him because he has a gray hair. I like him. I like that dark red shirt. So I'm trying to look for anything that I can find one good thing about that person. So my brain can never engage in criticizing something. Otherwise, I'll be thinking, "Oh my goodness, in the church, why is he wearing that kind of shirt? Why is her skirt so short? And it's going above the knee." And all of this nonsense thing that I get trained. So I have to really work with my brain. And when I look at my husband, there's nothing, right? Nothing that I can find a fault as long as I let go of my obsessivity. And when I come to the church, all of this food, what you can eat, what you cannot eat, how many can you do jewelry or not, and all this. Oh my goodness, I found out when I go to heaven. We will be walking down on the golden street. We will be passing through the pearl gates. What is the matter that we're talking about? Kids' $3 earring, $10 necklaces. What is the matter with us? I want to let go of all of this. So whenever I see a young kid coming from there, I don't ever look at what they wear, what they have. I want to look at their face. Be so thankful they are here, praising Lord. I want to drop all the criticism. And it has to, all of this training has to be intentional try. A lot of intense prayer, right? For me. Now my husband, I don't know how much he tries. I think it just comes so natural for him. Is it natural for you too? You had to practice too. Yeah. So all of this re-internalization, it takes active process. We need to get rid of all of these unnecessary lines. A lot of critical things. And we do have to have some principles in our brain, right? And if there's some principle, we do want to have a 10 Commandment keeping in our brain. We do want to keep the Sabbath, starting Friday, ending on Saturday night. We don't want to lie to the people. We do want to honor our parents. We do want to do all of that. And in marriage, we don't want to have any kind of flirtatious behavior with any other person. So that line has to be there. Some people, they do everything else, but they don't have that. They think it's okay to flirt with exes and this and that. If you're married, you don't communicate with the exes if you have exes, unless you have to communicate for the kids, right? So there has to be some lines that we have to have. But none, we don't want to have any addiction. And we do need to work hard to provide a financial support for our kids. We also need to have a lot of problem-solving skills. But other things, okay? How many clothes can you manage on the floor? Things like that. Who's going to clean the house? You can all adjust this, but you don't have to fight about this. So, a lot of retraining your brain. Retraining? Okay. So when you try to recreate yourself, when you find one good behavior, you want to exercise 30 times. By the time you say 30 times, the 20 brain cells get connected. So if you used to call your spouse, hey, now you want to call, honey. Try to practice that soft, sweet, loving tone about 30 times. And then 20,000 neurons will connect. And that's beginning of a new habit formation. So you repeat that again and again, and then sweet voice becomes natural for you. So many years of my early marriage, my husband got a lot of criticism. Now I try to change that to compliments. So I try to give him a lot of compliments. And at first it was so hard. I had to write it down. Okay, today, what am I going to compliment him? Because guys need about 3 to 4 times compliments a week. Okay? So one time, we'll get into more of this fun thing tomorrow. The difference between men and women, right? So we'll get that. The Sabbath morning, you better be here on time, okay? So we'll get a lot of this men and women thing tomorrow. Maybe late. Okay. Okay. So then, a lot of this changing, try to focus on. So one day I write it down, I tell him, I come home. So, you try to, compliment him. You're so sweet every day. Next day, oh, it's so wonderful. You're sitting right next to me. We'll be watching Korean drama over the weekend, right? And then I don't just watch. I look at him and say, you know why this is so fun? It's because you're sitting right next to me. His smile goes all the way up. You try this so many, because you can't do the same thing within 2 weeks, right? You have to skip at least about 2 weeks. Then you can repeat the other ones too, right? But sometimes you try so hard, and then sometimes, today I can't think of anything. So I gave up. So I'm driving home. So that was many months ago. So then you do this so many times, and sometimes you run out of it, and I just forget it. But this is the beauty of your brain. When you do it over and over for a couple of years, it comes automatically. So one day I couldn't do it. I just go home. I drove, and then the garage, the button pushed, and garage door opens. So whenever the garage door opens, he hears it. He opens the door, connects to the family room. He will always open, and then he puts his arm over the door because he's tall, right? And then he goes, "Come on in." You know what, my brain? It says, "Wow, even that darn door looks beautiful because of your hand." I couldn't think of anything, but it just came automatically. And he said, "Aren't you trying too hard?" But his mouth was still all the way up to the ear. He was still happy about that. So you try this. You try to changing your negative brain to positive about 8 months. About 6 to 8 months, your brain will form automaticity. It'll come automatically. Your brain will give you a lot of things to compliment about. So that's how you want to change. And we can never be somebody else. If I was born to be a rose, I can never be a daisy. But I just want to take up all those thorns, right? And just be a beautiful flower. But he loved me because the way I looked. I don't need to be daisy. I can still be rose, a beautiful rose. But I just don't want to have all that thorny thing in me. Okay, so that's how we want to change. So let's try to read. Ready? And go. Christ-like way need to begin from home. It is what our kids need to see if they're going to fall in love with Christ. We can't be acting like a Christ in the church only. So it is good that we practice at home. Okay? So recreating our brain pathway of loving behavior, we just need to try and try. And when we try the old behavior, it'll never go away, but it'll fade away, and a new behavior will strengthen. And we become more loving person. So as we are studying this, let's also talk about what it means to be a biblical woman and biblical man then. Because that's what we want to learn more too, right? So in Bible, and it's not all of it, but some that, Bible talks about we women submit to Christ. As we submit to Christ, we submit to our husbands. And we'll talk about that, why that could be so easy. And we do want to sanctify husbands. We don't want to bring them down, right? And we have a lot of sexual duty. And there aren't too many things about wife and husband in the Bible, but there are several about a woman having a sexual duty to a husband, because our body belongs to both. And when we go to Proverbs 31:22, and there is a woman who decorates bedroom and wears fine linen. What does decorates bedroom mean by? What does it mean? Does it mean by having beautiful curtain, an expensive mattress, and all the expensive, luxurious bedroom furnitures? It means by of course, it's nothing wrong with having luxurious, good things if you can afford it. But it means more about us making that bedroom beautiful, having our attitude, sexual duty to our husband, openness about it, more willingness about it, and more positive, not passive, more assertive. And we'll talk more about this tomorrow too. So we have a lot of sexual duty. And sometimes in Korean culture, what it means to be a good wife was to cook good, clean good, and take care of the kid good. Then we are good. And no wonder 90% of Korean men have a mistress outside. We were just not a biblical woman. It's the culture of a Buddha. It's Buddhism. They don't emphasize about what it means to be a wife. They emphasize about having house clean. That's why I was so obsessed about having house clean, right? And they talk about how to raise a kid good. Yeah, that's good. We still need to do that. But the Bible, yes, we do a lot of good things. The first thing is that we have this is a huge thing. It's a sexual duty. That's how we need to be pleasant about it, how we need to be inviting. Do not make them beg for the sex. It's a very, very important thing, right? And we speak with the wisdom, and we have a dignity, and we get respect from children and husband. I didn't have a lot of respect from neither children or husband. And I think right now, by the rights of what my kids are writing on birthday card, I think I got their respects by now. After trying to change myself so hard. And I think my husband, I think he did say that he will live rest of his life with me, didn't you? So, it helps for him to feel that I'm not going to bark at him every night when I see him, I'm not going to pinch him, and I'm not going to do all of that. So we can do some of this, and this is a biblical. How about a man? What it means to be biblical man. The husband is the head of wife. What does this mean? Korean man interprets head means high. They're higher. And women are on the earth. They're lower. Is that what it means? What does it mean? What's the function of the head? Some of you are in a medical field. What's the function of the head? Head, watch over our body. It makes our heart to beat. It makes us to breathe. It makes our stomach to digest. Even though we're sleeping, the brain doesn't sleep. They work hard to make all the organ right? So that's husband's work. Watch over wife if she's not too tired. Watch over the kid if they're doing okay. So when, husband becomes a biblical man, it is so easy for a woman to submit ourselves to our husband because we trust he take care of me. We trust our husbands will take care of us. So whatever he say, we know he means good, he will take care of us. So it works well. Husband becomes the head of the house. We submit ourselves to him. And you give yourself for your husband. And love your wife as yourself. And you treat with respect. And a man also have sexual duty too. It's not just a woman, because body belongs to both. And guys can cook too. Even Jesus cooked for the kids, for his disciples, right? So men can also cook, nothing wrong with that. So a lot of Korean men struggled with this. I know when my husband learned about this, when he first went to the kitchen, he was going like this. He was so awkward. He knew that was a love for women, but it was very, very awkward. But he worked with his emotional brain. He retrained it. So who does more dishes now? He does more dishes than I do. So he's reaching almost to the excellence of the angel. He's almost perfect. I'm telling you, he's almost perfect. There's nobody perfect, so that's why I'm saying almost. If he can put up with me and live this far, and he still says, okay, I will continue with you. And then, I think he is almost perfect. So he worked really, really hard to work with my personality. He knows how picky, how critical I used to be, and sometimes I still am. It's not like we don't ever fight. We still fight like 2 to 3 times a year. But we just reconcile a little bit faster than we used to, right? And it's bearable if you only do 2 to 3 times a year. It's not every week. So, you change a little bit, not completely, but bearable, more loving, right? So, men also need to learn a lot of self-control. So if you have an anger problem, you do want to learn how to control your anger, which I will not be able to go into that this weekend. You only want to have one wife. Okay. So, we try to learn this. The Bible does say that we are taught with our old way, right? So put off your old self, which is corrupted by its deceitful desire. We think, if I can make my husband to behave the way I am, I'll be happy. It's not that way. As long as I am working on myself and he's working on himself, that's how we can be happy. We cannot focus on changing our partner and think that we're going to be happy. Because if brain constantly requires something, one thing after another, it'll just constantly do this until we die, unless you capture that brain and say, no more. Relax, let go. And you can train it. And if right now, if you have to come to my house, you will have to give me like a 2 weeks notice. It's so messy. But at least I'm not screaming at anybody. And nobody's unhappy just because it's messy. He has no problem with a messy house, right? But I know I have a limit. There's a little ceiling there. When it gets too messy, I say, oh, I need to clean up. It's too messy. And he gets alarmed right away. So, okay, then we just do this really fast. And I don't have to get angry. He doesn't have to get all the scolding from me. It's just halfway decent. It's just not dirty, but it's always messy. It's okay. So I don't have to be so righteous. I don't need your approval. I was so desperate about everybody seeing me as a good woman, clean woman, organized woman, whatever woman that may be. I was so taught to pay attention to what everybody else think about me. So now what? Forget about what everybody else thinks about me. But do care for what my husband think about me. That is the most important. What my kids think about me. I drop my approval issue because what Jesus approved me is good enough for me. So we can drop our approval issue. We don't need to be always righteous about this, okay? So when we know that God gave us a capacity for continual improvement, this is a good news. Until many years ago, we thought our brain stopped growing after age 25. Now all the scientists are screaming with the good news. We can improve our brain until we die. There's no fixation. As long as we motivate ourselves, we have a goal to change, we practice at it, we can become that person. So we don't need to change everything. We just need to change what is dysfunctional in our relationship. So that's what we can do. And He did granted us all possible aid in the work. Through the provision of divine grace, we may attain almost to the excellence of the angels. So tonight, when you go home, think about what you emphasized was created the conflicts in your home. And try to write them down. And decide, oh, this is not important anymore. If Jesus didn't think this was important, it's okay, I'm going to drop this. Oh, this one is important. Oh, that one is. So both of you do this. And know whatever was causing the argument and fighting, and decide which one to fight about. Only leave a very, very important as a Ten Commandment issue. But everything else, you can say, okay, I'll live with that. This is okay. So you do this from today and try this like about a year. You're going to become very, very comfortable spouse to your own spouse. Your spouse will love you. Your spouse will love to sit right next to you. Your spouse will love to walk with you. Your spouse will love to talk with you. And creating loving atmosphere. So focusing on yourself, what you can change. And if you can't think of anything, that your spouse knows you more than you know yourself. So you can ask your spouse, what do you want me to change? So exchange that list. And don't fight about it after your spouse gives you some things. Like, well, this is something I cannot change. Don't fight about that. So you have to promise each other. Okay? Do in Korean way. Promise, stamp, and copy, so you don't overrule. So, you exchange, until this time, in what ways did I make you hard? What was my characteristic that caused a lot of trouble in you? So you exchange that list and make that list and try to work on it. And work on it one at a time. Because they live, your spouse lived with you until so far, you give them, okay, for this one, give me 2 months. Now, a lot of things didn't take as long as 7 years of that, not getting mad at the clothes on the floor. It took me 7 years to calm down. Some things take long time. Some things, like trying to give him a lot of compliment, it didn't take that long. I just had to write down every day, at least 3 or 4 each week, right? And then you can repeat with it, after 1 month, you can repeat the same thing, but just structure a sentence in different ways so it doesn't come out as exactly as, you said it before. So you can work like that. So tonight is the night that you work on yourself, okay? And then exchange your list each other and try to work on that. And then tomorrow morning on the Sabbath school, we'll be talking about what is love for guys, what is love for women. And you don't want to miss that one. That's when you're going to have a fun time. And the worship time, we'll be talking about why do we get so angry, what makes us so angry, and how do we overcome this. So our emotional trauma, how does that affect? How that affects in our everyday life. We'll talk about that. And then in the afternoon, all of everything that you're going to learn need to be translated into language. So we'll be talking about loving communication in the afternoon. That's going to be our series. So I need to end. It's almost 8:40. So I appreciate your attentiveness and think about focusing on yourself. And we'll see you again tomorrow morning. Have a good night.